We are here to start off the new year with an incredible, absolutely amazing man, a person who represents really what people should be. He's an author. He is a mindset coach. This guy does it all, and he is here today to help us to start off this new year, 2026, in the right way, with the right mindset, with the right discipline, with the right amount of motivation, with the right mix of everything. David Gibson, how are you doing today?
Deja, I feel amazing. It's an honor to be here. I had to sit back for a moment and really wonder who you were introducing when you made that introduction, but I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, you are someone who I think most of us who have the opportunity to encounter you on a daily basis or a consistent basis, like I formerly did when we boxed together.
Yeah.
We get to experience like how poised you are in like human form. It's like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like you're always on with your level of discipline and motivation. And so I want to start off with, where in the world does that come from?
That's
a big question.
That's an interesting question. Because I get that question a lot, and many people often ask, do I just wake up this way? And it's like, no, right? I have moments when doubt arises, or fears are trying to hijack my mind, or negativity is trying to overwhelm me. But ultimately, over the years, I have developed practices and different steps that I take every single day to kind of prime my mind to be in the space where I can be effective, and ultimately in alignment with the goals that I'm aiming to accomplish. So we can definitely talk about, some strategies and tactical things that people can integrate into their day-to-day life that will help them, do just that. But for me, it's really just positioning myself every single day, getting connected with my purpose, connecting within, and connecting with, a power that's bigger and greater than me. And that ultimately helps me show up effectively.
Yeah, because that's my question, is how do you manage fear? Fear is such a big thing, and it encompasses so much of our life on a daily basis, that so much so that for me last year, the theme of my year, I actually have a bracelet on right now to remind myself on a daily basis. It says faith over fear. Just because, and I've heard someone say that the Bible, depending on the translation, it says do not fear 365 times, as if God needed to tell you that every single day. So what do you do to, in some ways, distance yourself from fear, or to maybe it's still there but you keep going anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say distance myself from it. I would more so describe it as leaning into it, right? Because ultimately, one thing I teach leaders is to lead with courage. And Mark Twain once said that courage is not the absence of fear, it's the resistance of fear. It's you feeling the fear and you doing whatever it is that's intimidating you. So to overcome fear, first and foremost, you have to be mindful of it. Be aware that you're in this emotional state that's attempting to suppress your potential or hinder you from stepping into something new or accomplishing something that you're aiming to achieve in life. Once you build that awareness around it, now you can be empowered. I tell leaders that self-awareness is the first step to self-empowerment. As I become aware of this fear, I can understand how it's influencing me. Okay. And then I begin to connect with, okay, what am I aiming to experience? What do I want to accomplish? And what's the purpose behind that? So ultimately, as I connect with the purpose, that purpose therefore drives me beyond that fear, right? Because again, what we fear but never face is always going to control us. But if we start facing the very thing that we're afraid of, what happens is that fear that at one point seemed very big and extremely intimidating begins to get a little smaller and have less influence over us the more and more we step into it. Whether that's speaking in public, whether that's posting online and sharing your story, creating content, whether that's starting a business, the more and more you take daily steps towards the things that intimidate you, the more confidence you develop, and the more confidence you have, the better your results.
Yeah. You said one thing, and I'm going to ask you about it because you said so much there. There's so much that you pack into even a little bit.
Yeah.
How does someone, if they're a little bit nervous or they're worried, how does a person find their purpose? Like, what does that look like? How does that show up? Because a lot of what you have said ultimately goes back to connecting to purpose.
Yeah.
So how do you? To me, it's a bit of a big question. It's a bit of a hard question, but we hear it all the time. How do you find that?
It's an extremely packed question, Deja, but to answer it, I would say first and foremost, the process can look different for everybody, right? There's no one path. There's, more than one way to skin a cat, as the old cliche saying goes. But for me, what I begin to identify is the areas where fear often tried to attack me was often an indication of where my power lived, right? Something I teach leaders is that what the enemy sends after you is an indication of what's at work within you, right? So
that's good.
if you begin to identify the areas where you feel discouraged, you feel doubtful, you feel insecure, in many cases, these are often indication of what makes you gifted, what makes you special, what makes you unique. So you want to start exploring those things. For me, for so many years, Deja, for me to step in front of a camera, for me to step on a stage and speak publicly and to inspire people, if you would have asked me that 15, 20 years ago, like, hey, is this what you're going to be doing? I would have laughed at you.
Yeah.
Right? Literally, because I grew up as a very quiet and reserved person. I was afraid to speak in public, right?
Sure.
But nonetheless, to make a very long story short, I began to identify that the areas that were aiming to be suppressed within me by fear were often the areas where I was gifted and I can provide the most value unto others. So I began to just literally do the very thing that my thoughts were trying to convince me I couldn't do.
Yeah.
And therefore, I understood I don't have to believe everything that I think. And I started taking those daily steps and doing this thing that started to create some type of passion within me. The more and more I started connecting with a purpose and understood people need what it is that I have to offer. And the same is true for everybody that's under the sound of my voice right now, right? You've got a gift, you have a talent, you have some skill set, you have some unique ability within you that other people need. God has invested this gift within you. It's up to you to lead your life with courage.
Yeah, that's easier said than done, but I
Very much so.
I know what that's like, because for me, I never thought that I would be on camera or doing anything on camera, because for me, I've always been more of like a newspaper person and somebody who writes. I'm a digital producer, and that this was something that like being, doing this literally right now was something that I was nervous about, but at the same time, it was like I was also called to it, and I was like, this is like the next step, and this was like, this is what you need to do to help push the message, that you want to get out there, that you have within you. This is another way to reach people. This is another vessel. And so it is oftentimes on the other side of fear, that result is on the other side of fear. So if somebody is getting started in the new year and they have some goals, number one, how would you say that they should set their goals or manage their goals or go about their goals in any way?
Okay, so you want to get into like some practical things that we can begin to do to position ourselves for a monumental 2026.
Absolutely.
So first and foremost, here's what I suggest. Before you even take steps forward, start reflecting on where you've come and where you are, right? Take a moment, everybody listening, take a moment and really acknowledge how you've grown, right? How you've grown in 2025. Begin to look at that. Begin to look at things that you accomplished.
Yeah. That's really good, because somebody like me, I do not take a second and look at anything that I've accomplished. I'm always like go.
And we've been conditioned to do that.
Next step. Especially in hustle culture, American culture. There's a bit of like you are what you've produced, you are what you created, like that you are your next steps. And so, it can be difficult to go back and celebrate.
To your point, Deja, like we've been conditioned to focus on the next thing. What's up next, right? And one thing that I teach leaders is that one of the most powerful yet underutilized tools is really self-reflection. Like iconic leaders and, impactful leaders, they grow in areas like personal growth, personal development, and at the same time, self-reflection, where they reflect on how they achieve certain things, areas in their life where they can be better, right? What emotional states were driving their interactions with others, what thought patterns were influencing how they showed up in specific spaces, so they can begin to identify the necessary adjustments that they need to make in order for them to scale and move forward, right? So again, getting back to a practical step that we could begin to take, begin to reflect on your year, right? What have you accomplished? What have you achieved? What are some of the areas in which you've grown? What are some of the lessons that you've learned, right? Really soak in on that for a number of different reasons. A lot of times we can be so focused on where we want to be and the things that we want to experience that we don't take time to acknowledge how far we've come.
Right.
Right? Like there's areas where you've grown, but it's hard for you to notice because again, you're locked in on how far you have to go to get to that specific destination. So from a self-esteem, point of view, this will help you begin to enhance your confidence and that confidence from within on your ability to just move and scale and build progress and momentum. So that's step number one. Reflect on the year. Then begin to identify what were some of the habits that stunted my growth and my progress. What were some of the habits that helped me accomplish specific goals? What were some of the beliefs that held me back from certain opportunities or experiencing certain things, right? What were some of the environments that I put myself in that work towards my goals or maybe hinder me from taking steps towards those specific outcomes, right? Really building awareness around, again, your thought patterns, your emotional states, your habitual behavior, the environments, the relationships that you've been surrounding yourself by, and really starting to gain an understanding of where you are, right? Then, as you begin to assess that, then what you want to do is set your intention. What's your intention for the year? Who do you want to be? What do you want to experience? How do you want to feel? How do you want to show up, right? Before you even get to the specific goals, set the intention on how you're going to show up as a leader, right? Then, after you do that, I know I'm throwing a lot at us in a very short period of time, but ultimately you can then begin to dissect specific goals and outcomes and experiences that you want to create. And you want to make sure you're being very specific with these things, be very intentional with these things, and don't throw too much at yourself, right? We often overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, but we underestimate what we can accomplish in a long period of time, right? Just understand ultimately where you want to go, who you want to be, and what you're aiming to experience, and then get very specific about that. And then we can dive deeper into what that looks like on a more specific level. But 30,000-foot view, that's how we step into 2026.
Okay, so I heard just a little bit, at least anyway, a SMART in there.
Somewhat.
I hear about that, at least the specific part, and maybe a bit of the measurable part, and having that kind of like thing where you tap in with yourself. What about I know we talked about self-reflection a little bit, but what about a celebration? What does a celebration look like for you? How do you celebrate your goals without getting off track? Because one thing, you could be like, oh, I want to lose weight for the year. And then maybe you do that, but then you celebrate by eating, chocolate cake at the end of the week, and now all your goals have been undone. So how do you keep a celebration or an accomplishment where you are, honoring what you've done? How do you keep that intact?
To answer your question, here's what I first want to mention, okay? You're not a slave to perfection. You're a work in progress, right? So when you celebrate, don't think about being perfect at everything that you're doing, right? Like, yeah, you lost a few pounds, but go celebrate by eating a cake or a cookie, whatever the case may be, right? Enjoy life. Life is to be lived, Deja.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? But at the same time, there has to be a certain level of discipline, right? Where you have to make sure you're being consistent with being in alignment with who you're aiming to be and ultimately what you're aiming to experience. Now, I mentioned that to simply highlight one of the biggest game changers. Everybody listen clearly to me as we're entering into 2026. Yeah, we're talking about goal setting. Yeah, we're talking about things that we want to accomplish and experience. Those things are amazing. But what's going to create a monumental shift in this new year is you defining who you're going to be. I'm talking about identity, right? I'm going to answer your question here momentarily, but identity is what's going to really create a shift in our lives. And here's why. If we had time, we'd unpack this, but we don't have time to really go dive deep into it. But ultimately, we're all wired in a way, Deja, where our behavior will always be consistent with our identity. It's always going to be consistent with our identity. Most people attempt to change their behavior, but still hold on to the same identity.
Okay, so what does that mean?
So what that
Break
means
that
is
down.
this. Let's say, for instance, right now, we were talking earlier about how right now there's a lot of new year, new me, right?
Yeah.
You go to the gym.
Right.
There's a large population of people that have entered into the gym in the year of 2026 for the first time in a very long time. I hope this is not true, but statistically and historically, this is the way it unfolds. By the month of February, a large percentage of those individuals are no longer attending. By the month of March, the vast majority of those individuals are no longer going to the gym. Why is that? It's simply because they tried to change their behavior, but never adjusted their identity. And even though they took steps, even though they went into the gym, right? Even though they entered into and got a membership at this
Right.
one specific facility,
Yeah.
what began to happen is, slowly but surely, their behavior that's in alignment with that old identity
Yeah.
began to rise to the surface. They leaned into their comfort rather than leaning into their goals and their vision because they never changed their identity. Now, answering your question, if I shifted my identity at the top of the year as the type of person that doesn't miss a workout, the type of person that makes healthy choices, the type of person that values their health and they make choices every single day that are in alignment with that type of individual, if I eat a cake one day, that's not going to throw me off
Yeah.
because I shifted my identity, right? I've identified with this person. I'll resort back to that same behavior pattern. That's why I say you shifting your identity is where it begins.
The question though is because I hear what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Part of me feels a bit like that's easier said than done.
Oh, it's not this. It's not something that happens by the snap of your finger.
Yeah. So how does it happen?
It happens by you first and foremost setting the intention, and then you have to reinforce that identity in a number of different ways. Reframing your thought pattern, empowering your belief system, right? Shifting your emotional state. And here's another key factor, changing your environment. If I'm surrounding myself with people who are constantly making disempowering decisions, who are constantly making self-sabotaging choices, ultimately, I'm going to pick up on that energy and that vibe.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be a part of that program.
But what happens when, say, for example, you live with them, or you're married to them, or
Yeah.
they're your children? What happens when you're in an environment where it's kind of like you work with them? You can't, in some ways, you can't get out of this. So, like, I could be in a house and I could be like, I'm on a diet, but then that doesn't mean anybody else in the house is on a diet, and diet is a simplified, thing that we can talk about. It can certainly get deeper than that, but that's one, example of what if you are in a situation where you can't leave an environment.
Yeah, so that's a great question because these are real world scenarios that many people are faced with right now,
Yeah.
especially as we step into the new year. The aim is for you to be the catalyst, right? Where this is where you have to double down on your discipline to stay locked in on what's important to you. You prioritizing ultimately what it is that you're aiming to experience. Now, granted, there may be some resistance that's coming from whatever direction, but if you stay locked in on what you value, what can often happen is you will be the one that influences the other party. You can be the one that changes the trajectory of your family's health. You can be the one that breaks a generational cycle by you standing your ground. Now, of course, that environment that you're in physically may be a hindrance This is why you want to lean into a community, right?
Yeah.
We live in 2026 right now.
Yeah.
There's so many ways that you can connect with people who are on your frequency. So many ways you can connect with a community of people that have common goals, have common values, and that will help support you as you're making these positive changes in your life. So even though physically I'm in a household that doesn't necessarily value the same things that I currently value now, I can connect with a community that will be a support system that will assist me in making these daily decisions and choices in hopes to ultimately influence those around me.
Yeah, when it comes to me, and I completely immerse myself. I do live with people who, everybody does their own thing. But in my car, when I'm driving, I listen to, say, Audible, and it's going to feed me advice and tips. And, Masterclass is going to feed me advice and tips. And David Gibson is going to feed me advice and gives on the live. And so there's that, and then there's, I read my goals off to myself every day. I have to constantly remind myself, because like my theme for this year is worthy. I can say that, but that's just a word if I don't put anything behind it, if I'm not constantly reinforcing it, if I'm not constantly reminding myself of it. So, I can have this identity shift on paper, but it has to show up in other ways. And there has to be these kind of, right now I'm breaking it into bite-sized steps as to, okay, like you have this big goal for the year, but what does this actually look like on a daily basis?
Yeah.
And because you can't get to this big picture if you don't, you got to take the first step, as I would say.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you about who is David Gibson? Who is this guy? Who is the man behind all this advice that you've given us? And also, how long have you been doing this?
That's a packed question as well. To simplify it and answer it directly, I'm just an ordinary guy with an extraordinary vision. I'm on a mission to empower leaders to think with more clarity, to lead with more confidence, and to show up consistently and do the things that align them with their goals. I'm a firm believer that everybody has a purpose, and with the work that I do, I'm on a mission to help align individuals with their purpose so they can add value to humanity. Again, to make a very long story short, I got laid off in 2013 from a corporate sales position that I was working at the time. And ultimately, in that moment, I made the conscious decision that I was no longer going to do things that didn't express my heart. And God had given me a vision to speak and to encourage individuals to become the best version of themselves. And to be honest with you, Deja, I was in a state where I'm like, God, I find it difficult for me to encourage someone else. How can I encourage the next man or the next woman? But ultimately, I started leading my life with courage and stepping boldly outside of my comfort zone, just making it a goal to inspire at least one person every single day. And doors of opportunities began to open up. Started off speaking at different events and then traveling to speak at different conferences and speaking for organizations, started building my online community. Fast forward to today, I've been blessed to speak internationally. Speaking is really just my main focus, and then speaking turned into coaching, mastermind groups. I have online communities where we empower leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners, helping them show up effectively. And then we have a media production company where we create content that is all designed to help individuals tap into stories that inspire them and intrigue them and ultimately empower them to take bold steps towards their goals and their dreams. But ultimately, make a very long story short, just got laid off and made up my mind I was going to create value. And here we are.
Wow, I'm super excited to hear that. And, because getting laid off and having one of those kind of monumental things that happen in life, that can be a shift where, you can go one way or you can go the other way. And so I'm really happy, that you have produced amazing results and that you share that with all of us through different things. So tell me a little bit about what is Elevation is a Must.
So Elevation is a Must is a personal growth platform that ultimately is designed to provide leaders with the tools, the strategies, and the insights to help them grow, build, and scale their ideas. That's an umbrella where, again, it encompasses speaking services, my coaching services, as well as different online communities that I host for different groups of individuals, including entrepreneurs, content creators. It's a statement that really I live by. What it means to me is ultimately every ceiling that we bust through is the floor to our next level. Daily gradual growth has always been the focus, and constant and never-ending improvement. But ultimately, it's a platform that's designed to help individuals become the best version of themselves.
Yeah, awesome. So now tell me about what is Quest, a little bit more about that.
So you're diving into a number of different passions that I have. The Quest was something that was birthed out of the pandemic. Of course, in 2020, all of us had time to sit down and reflect on life as, everything was at a standstill. And Deja, I was in a position where I was questioning and wondering, how can I add more value? And as I'm asking myself this question, the way the mind works, ask and you shall receive, right? My mind began to go on a pursuit to discover different pillars of passion that I have. I identified I'm passionate about storytelling, I'm passionate about filmmaking, and I'm passionate about empowering leaders. And ultimately, the concept of the Quest was birthed out of that. And the Quest is a project that I developed that is designed for 3 reasons. Number 1 is to amplify the stories of small business owners. As you know, when the economy begins to plummet, small business owners are often hit the most, and they're impacted the greatest. So I want to be able to position myself to help share the stories of small business owners in hopes to build awareness around the wonderful things that they're doing within our community. The second pillar and third pillar is that I wanted to inspire and empower aspiring entrepreneurs and business owners in the early stages of their venture. Because I don't know about you, but I'm quite sure, there's people that we've come across that have great ideas on a product or a service that they can bring into the marketplace, but they often assume, I can never do that, right? They see somebody operating in a business and running a company, and they have this limiting belief that this could never be me. But through the power of storytelling, we begin to showcase and highlight that people that are running businesses, it's not that they have something specific in their DNA that enables them to run an entrepreneurial venture, or it's not that they have all the resources and they have all the handouts or, all the connections that give them access to certain opportunities, but really it's just individuals that made up their mind, I'm going to build this from the ground up. They're persistent, they're resourceful. And through the power of storytelling, we get to showcase that, to inspire people that are on the fence when it comes to starting that business or stepping into this idea and bringing it into the world. So with the Quest, we went on a journey, or a quest, so to speak, hence the title, to dive into the stories of business owners. We started off here in Indianapolis, and we go into the business and learn more about the business owner's story, what they're up to, the things that they did to create that specific business, and ultimately the day-to-day operations, startup costs, things that were entailed with them building this thing from the ground up. And then we also talk about some of their challenges, and we bring in consultants that help to provide coaching services, and we document all of this and package it into an episode, and then we share it with the world.
Yeah. Wow. I know you said filmmaker. Do you film the things themselves?
Yeah.
Okay,
so we're hands-on, my team as well. We dive into it, and it's a collective effort.
Yeah, I say that because on the when I was looking at the videos here, and I thought this before because I've seen some of your work. I was just like, this is such good filming.
Thank you.
You can capture something, but then it's like you can tell sometimes there's a difference between somebody who's just stood there with a camera and a professional who really knows what they're doing, or someone who's really taking the time to learn. So it's a really, really great film that you have there.
Well, I give credit to my team. I have a team of incredible filmmakers: Austin Keogh, Chris Wilborn, Keith Green, Atlas,
Yeah.
Bass, Joel Harmon, a number of different guys that collectively we came together and I shared the vision and everybody enrolled into that vision and they bought into the vision.
Awesome.
And we executed the plan.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. Shout out to Austin.
Yeah.
You know, it was right out here off to the side with us. And then I want you to, if you can tell us just a little bit about your book. You have several books. Last time I heard was Come Alive.
Yeah.
Overcoming challenges, living in your purpose, unleashing the real you. But go ahead and tell us a little bit about what those books look like.
So Come Alive is a project that I developed a few years back. Are you familiar with Howard Thurman?
No.
Howard Thurman, you know who
Thurman?
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes.
So we're
okay.
embarking on MLK Day in a
Yeah.
few days as of the
Yes.
time of this recording, right? Howard Thurman, in many ways, was considered MLK's mentor.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
Took me a
said
second.
that Dr. King would walk around with many of his books whenever he would travel and do his speeches and minister, one of which was Jesus and the Disinherited. But I would listen to some of his lectures, Howard Thurman, and I came across one lecture, Deja, where Howard Thurman made something, or he said something that really resonated with me. He simply said, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and do that. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive.
Yeah.
And as I thought about that, I'm like, if we can all tap into that thing that brings us deep fulfillment, if we can all tap into that thing that makes us, quote unquote, come alive, that's how we truly live. And as I thought about my personal journey, I began to identify different hindrances, right, that often got in the way of me stepping into that thing that make me feel alive, right? That goal that I have, that vision that I want to build and establish, there's often insecurities and doubts and fears and imposter syndrome, so to speak, that's getting in the way of individuals stepping into those specific roles. So with Come Alive, I share my personal journey. And I talk about some of those hindrances and ultimately steps that individuals can begin to take to overcome those challenges so that they too can step into that passion and essentially come alive.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. And what I love, absolutely love, and when I know somebody is deep, really into learning about what they know and learning about their craft, is when they look at the person who other people look at, who's behind them.
Yeah.
You know, so it's one thing, you know, you're looking at Martin Luther King, but then when you start to look at, like, okay, well, who was behind Martin Luther King?
Yeah.
You know, when you start to look at, you know, like I used to, and I was trying to find the guy's name. When you look at who's behind Muhammad Ali,
Yeah.
you know, I used to read a lot. I love Muhammad Ali, and I love his
Flow
story.
like a butterfly,
Yeah.
sting like a bee. Your
Yeah.
fist can't hit what your eyes can't see.
Look.
Rumble, young man, rumble.
I love me some Muhammad Ali, and I love, you know, all of that. And so he's actually coming out with some stamps here on January 15th. So I'm gonna have to
Nice.
get,
Okay.
I know.
I got to tap in.
I know, I gotta get some of those. But when you start to, I know you know your stuff, when you start to talk about the person behind the person, who everybody, you know, sometimes we see people who are elevated, if you will. You know, we see Martin Luther King, but we don't see that there are all these people that literally help to lift them up and
Yeah.
who help to encourage them. And you are one of those people who, along the way,
I received that.
to lift people up,
Thank
who
you.
helps to encourage people and helps to mentor people and give people the hope that they need to continue and to go up the next step in that staircase.
Yeah.
And so I thank you so much for the advice that you have given us, and for the new year, for 2026, as we take this on, and I'm going to take some of that with me.
Yeah.
I'm going to come alive. You
There
know?
you go. There you go.
will. I'm a big fan of yours and of motivational speaking, you know,
Yeah.
because, you know, I listen to it in the car. I listen to it when I wake up. I listen to it all the time because, you know, what goes in you, you know, is what comes out of you. And
Yeah.
it really does start. It's simple, but it does start with belief.
Yeah.
But it's funny because it's simple, but it's not always easy.
Exactly.
And I think that sometimes people confuse those two things. I think simple, it's easy, simple, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
And you are doing something that is very hard, and I'm so proud of the work that you've done. It's incredible. I learned here today that you were an international speaker, and that you also do this full time, and that people can they can book you as a coach. Tell me about how they can book you for a second here.
Yeah, you can definitely go to the website, elevationIsAmust.com, to learn more about my speaking services as well as my coaching services. You can also visit my website, joingrowthcircle.com. This is an exclusive community that's designed for ambitious leaders, content creators, as well as individuals that are just focused on growth. Business owners as well, where we have live sessions. We dive deep into topics as it relates to mindset development, personal growth, small business strategy, content creation, how to monetize your content. So that's a community that I've built. But definitely, if you're interested in that, go to joingrowthcircle.com.
JoinGrowthCircle.com. Elevation is a must. Quest, come alive.
Yeah.
We have all the things from David Gibson. I thank you so much for joining us here on the Deep Dive today. I appreciate you so much.
Absolutely, Deja. It's been an honor. And likewise, I'm extremely proud of the progress and the growth that you are making, the journalism that you're stepping into, and you're doing this boldly, and you're stepping into a new platform, and you're leaning into it. I'm loving it, and I know that the best is yet to come, so keep taking steps, sis.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back, guys.